All right, let's jump right in. We're taking a deep dive into Conor McGregor's career today. This guy went from, basically collecting unemployment to becoming this global icon and like breaking records and amassing just a ridiculous fortune along the way. But it hasn't all been, celebrations and champagne. And we'll be using excerpts from a recent article, I think it was just titled Conor McGregor, to guide our deep dive today. And exploring the incredible highs, the recent setbacks, and what makes this guy so captivating.
Well, one thing that always strikes me about McGregor is just like the sheer speed of his ascent. In a sport where, fighters often grind for years and years, to even gain recognition, his rise was just unprecedented almost.
Yeah, I mean, it really was something else. The article uses the phrase meteoric rise, and I think that's spot on. We all know about his impressive record, but I think it's worth pausing to really appreciate the fact that he holds the record for the most knockdowns in UFC history. And that's not just about winning, right? It's like a statement about his fighting style, aggressive, all out.
Yeah, and that style, it translates into the kind of spectacular finishes that fans go crazy for. He's not just winning, he's delivering knockouts. And those are the moments that create legends in the sport. Not to mention he's second in all-time KO/TKO wins.
Yeah, and that ties into his whole persona, right? He's always going for the big moment, the highlight reel finish. But beyond the knockouts, I mean, think about this. He was the very first UFC fighter to hold championships in 2 weight classes, lightweight and featherweight simultaneously. That's a feat that requires just an incredible amount of discipline and adaptability.
Oh, absolutely. Jumping between weight classes like that. I mean, It's a massive challenge. It's not just about cutting weight or gaining weight. It completely changes your training regimen, your diet, even the types of opponents you face. To dominate across multiple weight classes like McGregor did, it's a testament to his talent and his work ethic for sure.
So we've got this picture of McGregor, at the peak of his powers, breaking records, seemingly unstoppable. But as we know, things have taken a turn in recent years. And the article doesn't shy away from addressing some of the challenges he's facing, particularly with USADA.
Right, and these USADA issues are serious business. For anyone who might not be familiar with USADA, they're the agency that's responsible for anti-doping in the UFC. And they have incredibly strict rules. And any violation can result in lengthy suspensions, fines, even stripping of titles. And the fact that McGregor is currently unable to fight due to these issues, it just puts his entire career in a state of uncertainty.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, and it really makes you wonder what this means for his future. And on top of the USADA situation, there's also the whole Ultimate Fighter comeback that, it didn't exactly go as planned.
The article doesn't mince words. They call it an abysmal failure. And while that might be harsh, it's clear that it didn't live up to the hype. There was a lot of excitement around him coaching these up-and-coming fighters. But it seems like it just didn't capture the audience's attention the way that I think people expected.
Yeah, it definitely raises questions about his ability to draw in viewers and maintain that same level of interest that he commanded before these setbacks. It's almost like we're seeing these 2 distinct chapters in his career, the meteoric rise to the top, and now this period of uncertainty and challenges.
That's a really insightful observation. It's like we're witnessing this real-life drama unfold with all its twists and turns.
Yeah, and the drama only intensifies when you consider how McGregor has responded to these setbacks. He's always been a fighter who thrives on confidence and self-belief, but how does that mindset hold up when faced with these kinds of obstacles?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just looking at wins and losses. We're trying to understand the psychology of a champion facing adversity.
It's interesting because even with all these recent challenges, the article points out some really positive aspects of McGregor's approach. For example, his loss against Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, yeah, that fight. I mean, that was a global event.
Yeah.
Even people who don't typically follow combat sports, they were captivated by that fight.
Exactly. Everyone was talking about it. And remember, Mayweather was, an undefeated boxing legend at the time. McGregor went into that fight knowing the odds were totally stacked against him, but he still saw it as this opportunity.
Yeah, the article highlights how McGregor kind of framed that loss as a learning experience, a chance to really test himself. I think it's one of the best boxers of all time.
Yeah.
He didn't let the defeat crush him. He used it to fuel his growth.
Yeah, that growth mindset is, something you hear about a lot in relation to successful athletes. But it's a powerful concept for anyone, really.
Oh, absolutely. It's about recognizing that setbacks are inevitable, but it's how you respond to them that defines you.
Yeah.
It's about extracting lessons from those experiences and using them to improve.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in, like, the fear of failure, But McGregor's approach is a reminder that, like, failure can actually be an incredible teacher. And his entire journey, right, from Plumber's apprentice to this global superstar, it's a testament to that. The article really digs into, like, his goal setting and just the sheer force of his motivation.
I mean, think about it. He wasn't just, like, some naturally gifted athlete who just effortlessly rose to the top.
Yeah.
He had a vision. He set these audacious goals, and then he put in the work, the relentless work to achieve them. I mean, that journey, right, from these humble beginnings to becoming a champion. It's what makes his story so compelling.
It's that, like, against all odds element that resonates with people. He dared to dream big and then backed it up with action. But of course, we can't talk about Conor McGregor without addressing, the other side of the coin, the controversies, the trash talk, that whole, like, notorious persona that both attracts and repels.
Yeah, that's a crucial part of his story, and it's definitely a factor in his kind of polarizing image. People tend to have strong opinions about McGregor. There's not a lot of middle ground.
Yeah, and the article brings up some recent examples of this, like his comments criticizing ESPN's ranking of women's MMA fighters. He specifically called out Chris Cyborg, who, to be fair, has had her own controversies in the past.
It's interesting how social media has become this, like, double-edged sword for athletes. It allows them to connect with fans, build their brand even, like challenge the status quo. But it also amplifies every comment, every opinion, and it can quickly turn into, like, a PR nightmare.
Yeah, one ill-conceived tweet or post can just, like, go viral and have a huge impact, especially for someone as outspoken as McGregor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we see this dynamic play out time and time again. An athlete might make a comment they think is, like, harmless or even humorous, but it gets taken out of context, spreads like wildfire, and suddenly they're dealing with, this wave of backlash.
Yeah, and then there's this whole dynamic of, like, rivalry and ego, which the article touches on through Sean O'Malley's suggestion that, McGregor might be jealous of his success.
Whether there's any truth to that is up for debate. But it raises some interesting questions about, like, the psychology of competition.
Yeah.
Especially at that elite level. Even when you're, like, at the top of your game, there's often this underlying need to, prove yourself, defend your status.
It's like that drive to succeed never really goes away. And it can manifest in these different ways. Sometimes it's healthy competition. Sometimes it leads to these, like, clashes of ego.
Absolutely. And in a sport like MMA, where it's so individualistic, where your success is so directly tied to your ability to, like, dominate your opponent, those competitive instincts can be, like, especially pronounced.
Yeah. Makes you wonder how McGregor's, like, processing all of this, right? The setbacks, the USADA situation, the ultimate fighter flop, the rise of new contenders. It's a lot to grapple with.
Yeah. And that leads us to the big question. What's next for the notorious Conor McGregor? Can he overcome these obstacles and reclaim his place at the top?
I'm dying to know. What does the article say about the possibility of a comeback?
Well, it doesn't rule it out. In fact, it points to several factors that could, like, work in his favor.
Like what?
Well, for starters, he's still a massive draw.
Yeah.
He has this unique ability to generate hype and capture the public's imagination like no other fighter in the UFC.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. The organization would welcome him back with open arms.
Yeah.
A McGregor fight is an event, and events sell tickets.
That's true. He brings a whole different level of excitement to the sport. You can't deny his star power.
Exactly. But we also have to acknowledge the other side of the equation. He still needs to resolve the USADA situation. And he has to prove that he can still compete at the highest level after all these setbacks. Ring rust is a real thing.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. On one hand, you have his undeniable charisma and ability to generate buzz. And on the other hand, you have these very real challenges that he needs to overcome. It really feels like he's at a crossroads.
It does, doesn't it? And regardless of what path he chooses, the article makes a compelling point about his legacy.
Okay.
He's already had an undeniable impact on the sport of MMA.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Obviously, he's been a phenomenally successful fighter, but how would you define his lasting impact?
He changed the game. He showed fighters that it's possible to transcend the sport, to become a global brand,
right,
to command the kind of paydays that were previously unheard of in MMA.
So he essentially paved the way for other fighters to elevate their status, to be seen as more than just athletes.
Precisely. He's almost like a rock star in the world of MMA. Whether you admire him or find him obnoxious, you can't deny the influence he's had.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways? We've covered so much ground, the triumphs, the struggles, the controversies, the lasting impact. It's a lot to process.
I think what stands out to me is that McGregor's story is ultimately a reflection of human ambition and the complexities of success. It's a story about daring to dream big, about pushing boundaries, but also about facing the consequences of your actions.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the path to success is rarely a straight line. There will be obstacles, setbacks, moments of doubt. It's how you navigate those challenges that truly defines you.
And that's the beauty of it. McGregor's story is still being written. Whether he makes a triumphant return or fades into the background, he's left an indelible mark on the sport and sparked conversations that go beyond the octagon. He's forced us to confront questions about ambition, fame, and the price of success.
So the question remains, what will his legacy ultimately be? Can he rewrite the ending of his story, or has the final chapter already been written? It's a question only time can answer.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Conor McGregor. It's been a wild ride.